Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. Okay, this is a special show. This is a test show. So I want you to do me a favor. If you like this episode and what we're talking about here today, I want you to give me a thumbs up and definitely subscribe if you haven't done so already. Because we are venturing away from vinyl, way away from vinyl and music for a minute to look at another one of my interests. Now, if you look at my banner, it says vinyl, tech, and cool stuff. This would fall into the cool stuff. For me, this is another big hobby of mine, and that is collecting Hardy Boys books and the stories and reading them. And I'm an absolute Hardy Boys fanatic, as much so as I am a vinyl fanatic. So if you like this show, again, give me a thumbs up and let me know so I know whether or not you guys want more of these or not. If it's a flop, you guys don't care, we'll move on. We may never do another Hardy Boys show. But if you're intrigued, you've heard of the Hardy Boys, you're curious, or you're a Hardy Boys fan, then hopefully you'll really enjoy this. So I'm doing this show to give you an introduction to the Hardy Boys if you've heard of them, or maybe you haven't heard of them and you have not read any of their books. This show is for you. So I picked this as an example. I have a decent sized collection. I don't have the world's largest by any means. I mean, there are guys that are into collecting, gals that are into collecting these and have bookshelves full of every iteration of every volume. And I have a much more humble and modest collection than that. But I've got some interesting pieces, and I picked this one because it's an example of one of the more interesting ones. And as you can see, it's in terrible condition, absolutely terrible condition, but it has some really great artwork on this. I mean, check this out. This is very, very appealing artwork to me. I just love it. This is a 1951 edition of the 30th Hardy Boys book, The Wailing Siren Mystery. And this is one they call an OT, or original text. What does that mean? Well, let me take a step back. So the Hardy Boys started in 1928 and by the Stratmeyer Syndicate, published through Grosset and Dunlap, which is now, there have been legal battles, it's very convoluted, but now they're a part of Simon & Schuster. But anyway, what happened was, and there's various spin-offs and there's all kinds of, sequels and things and whatnot, but important to know where it came from. And they started by publishing 3 books to see how it was going to do. This was really an answer to the success of the Nancy Drew series. So the Stratmeyer Syndicate published books that were designed for children. The target audience is 10 to 14-year-olds. They were designed to be hardbound books. That was really important because they wanted them to be of the same physical quality as adult books. And there was a lot of things that they had to, in order for a Stratmeyer Syndicate book to be published, they had certain requirements. They had to have a certain set number of chapters. These older ones have 25 chapters. And we'll talk about what I mean by older. And the artwork is great. I love, love, love the artwork. So they would have 25 chapters for the original stories. They would have, every chapter would end with some sort of hook to make you want to read the next chapter. They would all be uniform in length, and there was, certain rules and regulations that they had to follow. Now you'll see on here it says by Franklin W. Dixon. Every Hardy Boys book ever will say by Franklin W. Dixon, and every Stratmeyer Syndicate book, it looks like it's by the same author. They have a different author for most series. Some of them share the same, like there's a few series that use Franklin W. Dixon. Well, that is a pseudonym because that is actually not a real person. They would hire different authors. Oftentimes they were newspapermen, article writers, freelance authors and writers looking to make another buck. I think they paid them around $80 up front per book. And, they would work off of a basic outline and they would turn in their work, collect their paycheck and disappear. So there's a number of different authors throughout the years and throughout the different versions, although many of the early editions were written by Leslie McFarlane, who was a Canadian writer, and this is not one of his books, but those are the most, some of the most sought after. Now, these books they did a breeder set. So they released Like I said, what was it, 3 in 1928, and then they did 1 or 2 a year thereafter until they got up to number 38 in the series, and by then it was the 1950s, and they discovered that they had a little bit of a problem, and that problem was that the books contained a lot of dialogue and things that by the 1950s were pushing it in terms of racial stereotyping and things of that nature. So there was a major effort starting after book number 38. This is number 30, as you can see, to go back and rewrite them. So if you've seen Hardy Boys books that have that blue cover with a flashlight at the top and they only have 20 chapters, those are the rewrites. And they made them shorter, that the language is a little bit more simplistic. They have more drawings. They're really trying to compete with television and with kids' attention in the 1950s. And so that's one of the ways they did that. And then they eliminated the racial stereotypes. Sometimes the stories were modified. Sometimes they were pretty similar. But a lot of times the original text, the OTs, have completely different stories. This one is similar in both the revised and the original text. But some books have a completely different story if you can find the original text. So these are very collectible. And you can do a little bit of investigative research with the book. So you can kind of be a detective with each one of these books in and of themselves. So, for instance, 1951. A lot of people will look at the publication date or the copyright date and say, oh, that's from 1951. Well, sometimes it turns out that even though it says one date, it might actually be published on another date. One way to tell that is to look at the list of titles on the dust jackets and the flaps to see, well, what is the last book written on the list here? In this case, it's this book, Wailing Siren Mystery. So we know that date is accurate. But let's say it was The Twisted Claw, and say, just for the sake of argument, that was 1926. Yet you saw this listing go all the way up to Wailing Siren. Well, we know Wailing Siren came out in 51, so therefore you have the 1951 edition. People collect them based on end paper colors. These are the famous orange end papers. A lot of different variants, a lot of unique things about it. And you'll see Ken Holt mentioned here on the side. And on the back, so is Rick Brant. So it's another series. So it's kind of like a magazine in that, or a serial in that they're trying to promote other things. The book you have is what it is, but they're trying to promote other book series and get you really interested in other series as well. And each one has different themes. So obviously Hardy Boys, it's two brothers and the cast of characters around Bayport, and their father's a detective, and they solve all kinds of mysteries, and it's super, super engaging and super fun. And they're always written to be timeless to the era that they're in. So if you read this one, it's very 50s, the technology they use, the dialogue, and that's part of the charm. And really, really interesting. So the Rick Brant series is more about science fiction, science, and stuff like that. Tom Swift was straight science fiction. Ken Holt was another mystery series. There was dozens and dozens of different book series that the Stratmeyer Syndicate published, and really, really engaging stuff. One of my favorite things about this book is, wait, does this one have it? Oh, this one doesn't have it. I'll have to again, if you guys are interested and you want to see more, tell me by, enjoying this video, giving me a thumbs up. Sometimes they'll give you like previews of other book series, and this one, some of the editions have previews for Rick Bryant, and they show like maps of the laboratory, and they give you a chapter to read. Anyway, it's super, super fun, and it's affordable. Kind of like vinyl, it's a very affordable hobby because, this is like a $4, $5, $6 book, no more than $10 for something in this condition, yet it's readable, it's enjoyable. And sometimes you find one in, pretty dang good condition. And sometimes you find them in rough condition, but it's still worth it because the art is cool, or it's a version you've been looking for. They're eminently collectible. And let me tell you guys, the stories are so fun. They are so engaging and so fun. If you love retro, if you love, mid-century Americana, you will love this. There's also British editions. There's, foreign language editions, and there's an infinite amount out there. You can get ebooks of them. You can, buy the physical copies. the reprints, go for the originals on eBay. It's just a super fun, super cool hobby, and one that I personally would highly, highly recommend. Extremely, extremely engaging. Every chapter ends with a hook to make you want to read the next chapter. And, you know, for people that grew up with these, truly, truly amazing. Now, I personally didn't read my first Hardy Boys book until I was like 25 years old. My parents picked up a big box of the newer editions, you know, at a garage sale for like $100. They picked up all, I think it's about 58 editions in the original storyline. And they gave me a few to read. I'm like, I always wanted to read one of these. So I picked one up, read it. I was hooked. And, you know, it's been a passion of mine ever since. So tell me in the comments below, do you guys like the Hardy Boys? Have you read the Hardy Boys or any other series books? Nancy Drew, Rick Brandt, Tom Swift Jr., Ken Holt. There was the Motion Picture Boys, the Radio Boys. There was all kinds of stuff. And a lot of the more obscure stuff is in the public domain. Hardy Boys is not, but the more obscure stuff is. So you can find stories that have to do with being a cowboy, with, you know, being a movie star, all the things that kids dream about in terms of, you know, fun adventure and cool storylines. So anyway, there you go, guys. If you want more of these book story videos, these videos on the Hardy Boys, let me know, because I've got a lot of cool books that we could take a look at. But anyway, that's going to do it for now, guys. Oops. Happy record hunting. We will see you tomorrow.